So imagine, if you will, that GTA 6 finally comes out, but none of the vehicles can surpass 30 miles an hour and your character can't physically commit any crimes. You'd be pretty disappointed, right? Well, there have been many times in gaming history where a major release foolishly forgets an important part of its internal logic and breaks its most important selling points. These usually aren't enough to damn a game completely, but it does leave players scratching their heads and thinking, that does not make any sense. I'm Sai for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 video games that stupidly break their most iconic features. Number 10, The Secret Room defies Batman's gadgets. Batman Arkham Asylum. Quincy Sharp's Arkham City room is one of the most well-known Easter eggs in all of gaming. It was a secret so well hidden it took players years to find, and even then it was only because the developers let them know where to look. Now you might be thinking, wow, it must have been really cleverly hidden, and you'd be right. However, it was also deeply unfair, as stumbling across it required you to ignore how the explosive gel gadget worked. You can't blame players for not finding something when it goes against everything they've been taught up to that point. Batman, or more accurately the player, could use explosive gel on weak structures in the Arkham games, which were signified either by their dishevelled looks or highlighted by detective mode. But the wall guarding this secret had neither, as it was just a regular wall no one would ever consider blowing up. Adding to this, it required multiple rounds of explosive gel, whereas regular breakable structures need only one. This implies that Batman can break through any wall he wants with enough explosives, so why can't he do that in any other part of the game? It's an incredible Easter egg, but it does make Batman and his gadgets look like a chump. Number 9, moving portals in Chapter 5, Portal 2. Calling Portal 2 one of the best puzzle games of all time is like saying Bethesda games have bugs because, well, yeah, duh. But part of what made the game such a phenomenon was how well established the rules of the portal mechanics were. For example, if you placed a portal on a moving object, it would disappear. Simple. But then this puzzle came along like a wrecking ball and messed it all up. Chapter 5 of Portal 2 tasks you with destroying a neurotoxin generator by using a laser to cut through a selection of tubes. The solution to this puzzle is to place a portal on a moving white platform that passes the laser through each pipe. That's all well and good on the surface, but it's a complete violation of the portal mechanics. There are no other times in either of the Portal games where you can place a portal on a moving platform, so why does this one get a pass? This puzzle became infamous in the Portal fanbase as it's a clear violation of the rules and an incredibly rare example of a time when the game's logic wasn't watertight. Number 8, multiple enemies break the stats cap, Fire Emblem. Tactical role-playing games can be complicated, to say the least, especially when it comes to applying real-life logic to them, so it's often easy to submit to your sense of disbelief and go with whatever the game tells you. Well, what happens if the game tells you one thing and then delivers something else? The long-running Fire Emblem series has a stat cap feature that is used to quantify the strength of character classes and enemies. It's a useful way of putting a limiter on certain classes, with promotion being the best way to get to a higher class and increase the stat cap. Of course, this doesn't seem to apply to everyone because many characters have stats higher than they are technically allowed. This is especially notable in late stage bosses who get whole new classes created for them simply so they can exceed the cap of their typical class. Another example is Takumi in Fire Emblem Fates, whose HP can become higher than the cap on his sniper class. Naturally, there are ways to increase stat caps with items and modifiers, but in many cases it simply violates the established order. Number 7, dragons continue to attack after Alduin's death, Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Skyrim has a lot going for it, but its biggest selling point is an overabundance of terrifying flying beasts. However, there's one big oversight that cheapens the dragons. The narrative of Skyrim sees you battling against Alduin, an ancient dragon aiming to end the world. Dubbed the World Eater, the antagonist brings the dragons to the lands of Tamriel and promises to set the world ablaze with them. It's heavily implied that once you defeat him, the dragon threat will be finished. So naturally, you push through the game assuming this will be the case. After you've managed to defeat Alduin in Sovngarde as part of your final mission, Dragon Slayer, you'll find, however, that your promised dragon-free land is, well, still swarming with them. You can still roam the land finishing off side quests and more after the final mission, but while there are certainly fewer dragons, they still exist, contradicting a significant part of the narrative. Number 6, the dual sword ruins the game's clever secrets, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night is hands down, no questions asked, one of the best sequels in video game history. Many would go even so far as to put it in the best games of all time, and it's hard to argue with them. One of the game's most impressive features is its seemingly unending array of secrets which can be uncovered with out-of-the-box thinking. Still, there's out of the box, and then there's this. You can unlock the dual sword by going to the entrance of Dracula's castle and finding a large chamber full of mermen. A huge stone with breakable walls on either side can be found in the middle of the room. Okay, you go ahead and destroy both. Now what? Well, of course, you need to fly through the passage as a bat, then walk through back the other way as a wolf. Duh! This will open a door leading to the weapon. While most of the secrets and puzzles in this game can be accessed through logical and clever uses of the mechanics, this one is mostly just messing around until you stumble across something. The very specific yet obtuse way you get this weapon laughs in the face of the game's brilliant and otherwise well thought out secrets. Number 5, why bring a sword to a gunfight? Fable 2 and 3. As the old saying goes, never bring a knife to a gunfight. It's fair to agree with that, as even the strongest sword wielder is going to struggle against someone with a boomstick. Just ask that guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark. And indeed, the massively controversial addition of firearms to the Fable series is a testament to how divisive that can be. The first Fable game was a classic fantasy adventure full of an array of magic spells, swords, and archaic ranged weapons like longbows and crossbows. Then Fable 2 came along and brought rifles, pistols, and blunderbusses to Albion. Many players enjoyed the addition and had fun with the new weapon type, but even so, adding guns to the game fundamentally ruins the series' logic. Where is the sense in even putting an effort into your sword fighting skills if you can just pick off enemies from a distance? Adding to that, why don't enemies just shoot you from afar? It is only a fantasy game, but introducing such a technological leap makes some of its most important combat features logically redundant. Making this all even worse is the fact that the wide array of spells from the previous game were completely nerfed, bringing players' options for magical combat down tremendously. Number 4, lightsabers aren't powerful enough, Jedi Fallen Order. Everyone loves lightsabers, there's no denying it. Kids and adults alike have been playing with anything even remotely saber-shaped going bzhoo bzhoo since the original Star Wars came out in 1977. Yet in Jedi Fallen Order and now Survivor, they are nowhere near as powerful as they should be. When Jedi Fallen Order came out in 2019, it was a happy treat for Star Wars fans. The single-player title was visually impressive, fun to play, and surprisingly challenging. However, its Souls-like gameplay made the almighty lightsaber feel like a basic melee weapon and not the dangerous item it is. Yes, the game's surprising difficulty was a great choice and really added something to a release that could have just phoned it in, but seeing a lightsaber, the all-conquering, unbeatable weapon of the Jedi requiring multiple hits to deal with simple enemies, just felt wrong. That's not even mentioning that the game fundamentally messes with what a lightsaber does. The original trilogy and the prequels made it clear that a slash from a saber will take limbs off even the most powerful characters. So how come a basic stormtrooper can remain intact when even Darth Vader felt his fair share of amputations at the hands of a trained Jedi? Number 3, why can't they use a Phoenix Down? Final Fantasy. The Final Fantasy fans watching this will certainly chalk this argument down to it's a video game, don't think about it too much, but no, sometimes that's fun and that's kind of what we do for a living, so let's get into it. A Phoenix Down, for the uninitiated, is a revive tool in the Final Fantasy franchise. You can use it during battles to bring your downed party members back up to speed. However, a firm yet illogical line is drawn only when the story demands. That is to say, people die in cutscenes from wounds that could be easily fixed. The example of Aerith comes up a lot, so let's use a different one. General Leo in Final Fantasy VI is attacked with a knife in the back during a fight with Kefka's Shade. This ultimately kills him. Okay, but Leo took plenty of hits in the battle beforehand and came out fine. Why is this attack different? And additionally, he was stabbed in the back, but this wouldn't mean instant death. Any other character could have swept in with a revive to help him out. Now, many people will point out that despite the name, a Phoenix Down is not used to bring people back from the dead. Instead, it revives incapacitated people on the brink of death. But even so, plenty of characters throughout the series could have been saved from their fate with a speedy application of this item. Number 2, the Master Sword needs charge. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Legendary weapons are the name of the game in fantasy, and few do it better than the Master Sword. The blade that seals away the darkness is an unstoppable, unrivaled item infused with the strongest of magics. Yes, it's awesome, so why do I need to plug it in every few minutes? The Master Sword has an awkward position in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom thanks to the game's controversial weapon degradation system. Using a weapon too much will cause it to break, but you can't exactly break the Master Sword if it's a legendary part of the lore. So what happens instead? Well, use it too much and it runs out of power and you have to wait for it to charge up again. So this is a divine blade created to slay the final boss, and yet like a common iPhone it can only go so long before you've got to put it away and let it power back up. That doesn't sound very all-powerful. This is especially noticeable in the final boss fight in Tears of the Kingdom, as wasting all of the sword's energy before you reach Ganondorf should mean it's out of commission. But no, the sword suddenly perks right back up as you step to the Gerudo King, because that's what the story dictates. What is going on with this sword? And number 1, ring capacity encourages you to not go fast. Sonic Frontiers. Gotta go fast is not some minor catchphrase used by the main character, it's the essence of the entire franchise. So Sonic Frontiers said, why not make it harder to go fast the more rings you collect? What? Well, the game was better than many predicted. A glaring design choice fundamentally pulls the rug out from under Sonic's feet, the ring capacity system. In the game, you get an additional speed boost from holding the max number of rings. Okay, that sounds good, but what happens if you upgrade your ring capacity, which can go from 400 to 999? The problem is that the player must have 4 rings to get that boost, meaning the higher the capacity, the harder it is to go faster. Why even bother upgrading capacity at all if having the lower number of rings gets you the boost quicker? What makes this all the worse is that you can pick between boosting your ring capacity or your maximum speed when upgrading. Your choice therefore becomes, do you want more speed or do you want the same speed less often? Sonic Frontiers was indeed a game that turned out better than everyone expected. How about video games everyone thought was going to be bad but turned out even worse? Click the link on screen now to stay with us here at WhatCulture Gaming. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment down below. Can you think of any other video games that break their fundamental gameplay devices? Head over to WhatCulture.com for more content every day. I've been Si for WhatCulture, and have a good week.